One will be the state of the district. Then I want to talk about phase 2. All right, and then we're going to talk about the sale of Sangamon, those 3 things. Okay, we'll move very quickly. All right, so just as an aside here, Mahomet Seymour gets 41% of all of our money, all right, from the state of Illinois. Okay, 52% comes from local tax revenue. And then real quick, the way that works again, the way the current education funding formula works, if I have a bucket of money and the state says for the last 10 years they've used the number $6,119 per student on your average daily attendance of all the kids in your district, you take 6,119 times that number, and that's the amount of money it should take to educate kids, the state thinks. So then they start to fill that bucket up, and so whatever money fills up from local tax funds, then your general state aid is the rest. Okay? So if I have that bucket of money here, it's about 50-50, right? If I'm living in Champaign School District, it's about 80% local and 20% state. Okay? If I'm downstate Illinois in Cairo, it's 2% local, 85, whatever that number is, 98% state. If I'm in Collier County in Chicago, it's 99% local and 1% state. So when the state for the last 5 years that you'll see has been prorating general state aid, and we're half dependent upon that money for all of our funding, it hurts us more than it does Champaign. It hurts downstate much more than it does Barrington, Illinois. Because they don't care about general state funding. They get all theirs on the commercial and that property within their district. That's why you're going to hear more about changing the educational funding system. Okay? So on the state level, on average, about a third is local, or about 2/3 is local, and a third on average in the state of Illinois. And again, most of that's northern Illinois. Okay, so that gives you a perspective of where we are. If we looked at our scenario in 2 areas, we'll look at the bottom first. Our enrollment has seen a steady increase from 2012, about a 1.5% increase every single year. Some years a little bit higher, some less, but it is steady. Some would say, well, only a 1.5% increase. Well, what I'm telling you is the tendency in the state is everyone is dropping. Families are getting smaller. Rural America is getting smaller. Districts all around us are shrinking. Those that aren't are those urban districts along Interstate 57 going south. Those seem to be growing, okay? When you look at general state aid, you can see the dip in general state aid the last 5 or 6 years. And now we're coming back a little bit because Governor Rauner's committed a little bit more money, but it's starting to creep back just a little, okay? And that's money for us directly to the district. If you look at historically our tax rates in this community based on school districts portion only, when I first got here in 2012, I heard the taxes in this town are really, really high. Well, actually they've been the rate has been level. Now, the value of homes may be going up, but the rate has been level for 20 years. And what does that translate into? It translates into, last year, we were the 3rd lowest tax rate of all the places you could live in Champaign and Ford County for schools. What I would tell you, that's a selling point because that is bang for your buck. All right? The other thing that it holds is the property values. When we have a good school district, the property values hold. And as we all know, that we are an incentive for people to move to this town. Okay? Now, you also know that Champaign just passed a bonding referendum, a $183 million bond referendum. So now they're going to go from here to here. So now we will soon be the 2nd lowest if those rates stay the same. Okay? That gives some perspective there. And the average homeowner in this community doesn't know that, doesn't realize that. All right? Because all they do is they look at their tax bill and see that we're the highest portion there. All right, jumping into school finance. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but that's the average monthly income last year into our school district. So when people say, why do you need millions of dollars in reserve? We have such a volatile cash flow, we've got to maintain reserves. And so that's what this guy's worried about all the time. All the time. All right? If you look at our expenses, All right, they're fairly level other than the bonding, but again, the revenue side of things, when that comes in, that's why we got to hold some solid reserves, okay? If you look at where we've been, we're going to pivot everything off of this to fiscal year 12. So the school year 2011-12, we're going to pivot off that year. That's a year before we started working together. So if we look at the spending, actual spending, not budget, because there's a difference between budget and actual spending. If you look at the actual spending for those years leading up to that, that's the trend line when we started working together on expenses for the district in our operating funds. Ed fund, which all salaries and all things related to instruction, O&M, buildings and maintenance, transportation, and then working cash. That's our spending the next 3 years. And then we add this last year. Okay? Now we cut $600,000 from spending the previous year to this year. All right? And then that allowed us to slowly bring back a little bit of spending. Okay? So let me throw some numbers at you. If you froze spending on 08 and compared it to this year, that number alone between those 2 years is $2.8 million in those 4 years, just that one alone. All right. If you looked at freezing 12 to here, that number is $567,000 and $69,000. If you added the cumulative new spending, if you froze spending here and added each one of just the new spending together over those 4 years, it's over $7 million in new spending alone. So we were trending in the wrong way. If you froze it and added the cumulative effect here over those 4 years, it's $84,000. So how do we do that? Well, we made some tough cuts. We've become more efficient in a lot of things that we do. We became very more pointed with our auxiliary groups, so the way the foundation, the way the PTOs, the way the athletic boosters, those people purchase. If we can spend, if they can support out of our operational funds, for instance, instead of buying smart boards that we could pay for out of sales tax, the foundation paid for half of the 4-year lease for our teacher stations. So I've got money out of operations that we don't have. We can buy the smart boards and they can quit buying those. They could help us with our operations. That decreases those costs. So it's strategies like that that we've been able to put in place that has really helped us get there. But it's taken a lot of people to do those kind of things, and our staff needs to be credited there. If you looked at balances, the first thing we did 4 years ago was say, our class sizes aren't going to get any bigger than this. This is what they would be in a perfect situation. This is what they would be in a balanced situation. This is as low as they can go, and that's the line in the sand. We did that with all class sizes K through 5. That relieved a lot of angst from our teachers because they were worried, are we going to have 35 and 38 people in a classroom and those kind of things. So the board did the same thing with fund balances. The board says, okay, in a perfect world, what's the most amount of money we need in those funds? And if it got higher than this 120 days cash on hand, then we need to think about lowering taxes. And on the flip side of that, what's as low as we can go to keep the balances that we need? It was 60 days cash on hand. And we knew that if we got to that, we need to pull the trigger on a working cash bond, which we did in 2014. Okay? So this has always been the target, that 90 days cash on hand. And how do you get that? That's how much we spend a day. This is how much we spend a month to run our business. Okay? Everybody with me? We're good? You guys get numbers. You know what. So that's been our target, and we can't get below that. So if you look at where we've been, and I don't want to waste a lot of time here. I don't want to delve a lot of time in this, but some people are visual people. I'm a visual person. He's a numbers guy, so we're trying to connect here, all right? We knew we were trending in the wrong way here, so we had to do something about it. So the board said, okay, we're going to go ahead and pull the trigger on a working cash bond to get us through, and now we're trending back in the other way. And so now we're back to where we're sustainable. We are sustainable. That's the message, okay? because this last year was the first time in 7 years that we've had a balanced spending year, which is a good thing. Yeah. So when we talk about those working cash, those days cash on hand, this is a history of where we've been. If this is our target, this is as low as it can go. We were trending in the wrong way. We did the working cash bond, kept our feet underneath us. This, if without it, would have been about here. And now we're trending back the other way. Okay? So that's the financial message that we have. Any questions there while I switch? Any? It's taken a lot of people to get there. Now, when I talked to our new superintendent and Dr. Hall, when she asked me what challenges are in front of her, her hardest thing will be if the state keeps funding us at where they should and we receive the money that we should, how do we bring back appropriately the things that we've been getting by without? We tried not to hurt students in the whole thing that we've been doing. But quite frankly, do we need things like another administrator at the high school? We got 970 kids here now. When it was 500, they had that. It's tough to, with 1,000 kids in the building, they're stretched. We didn't replace the guidance counselor who retired. We're trying to do it with 2 guidance counselors right now. What does that model look like? I think we need a college and career guidance person to connect the dots. That's why I like this group. That's why I wanted you to hear names. And so if you need opinions, if you want to work with, if you want to grow your own people, that's where you start. If we want our best people from Mahomet to come back and live in Mahomet, that's where it starts, which is why I like this group. Okay? So if I need an agent, if I need, a tech, whatever that may be, okay? All right, so let's switch gears here and move to phase 2. Phase 2 was this, right at $2 million. Phase 2 at Lincoln Trail, which we know is a sustainable building, and it's one we're going to keep around a while. New HVAC system, that was about $2.4 million. That was all done this summer in about 4 months. The other part of phase 2 is the addition onto the existing building. So right now, that's how much that building exists. So we're looking at enclosing that courtyard with a grades 1 and 2 addition onto that. Okay? So let me show you some of those visuals here. What do you see in this picture? Well, a 2-story tilt-up construction on the gymnasium, and this is a full-size gymnasium. You've got grades 1 and 2, first and second floor in the back, addition onto the back. You've got enclosed playground. You've got a play field out to the side. The footprint looks as such. One of the alternative bids that we're going to put on the project are lit tennis courts to the side. It is the intent of the district to try to do that if we have the funds to be able to do that. So if the bids come in correctly and we feel like we can pull the trigger, we're going to do this. There's not a tennis court in this town. We were the ones that tore out the last one at 13 acres. The board would like to add, tennis has been on our radar screen to add as a sport because we're going to Apollo and it is a conference sport. So again, a lot of things play into that, but that's a community space, we think. So if we can do that, we'll try to pull the trigger on that if we can. So again, just some images of what that may look like. And we're still tweaking as we go. All right, you see it from the west. This has changed a little bit since then. These concrete the crawl through space, they're going to be lowered a little bit, and there'll be like a pathway, a raceway, sidewalk. The architect's idea of putting mulch down with first and second graders and kindergarten is probably not a good idea, we didn't think. So we're not going to put mulch down here, I don't care if it's synthetic or not. We're not putting that in. So things are being tweaked as we speak, okay? But again, it gives you a little bit of an idea. The enclosed playground idea is very age appropriate. So we look at school safety is big. The entrance into the gymnasium area off the northwest corner, there's a west view. Our thinking is that would be the drop off for first and second grade, Kindergarten drop-off would remain the same on the Mahomet Raceway in front. And there's another west view, southwest view. There's an addition onto the cafeteria that you see that we're going to try to add on as well to make that space a little bit bigger. A new boardroom that would be half, again, the size of the one it is now. What we have is probably not quite big enough, so the boardroom would actually double. So we'd have another room similar to what we have in here. There's the main entranceway outside the gymnasium. Again, another view there. Into the gymnasium. This is a little bit of a twist. The gymnasium is a community FEMA full protection space, which means it has to have bathrooms and it has to have backup power. So this is an enclosed, hardened space. So you and I, even our students, were always told if you're in a school and the tornado's coming, you get out of the gym, this is a space we would go to in bad weather. Because it is totally, there are no windows, even though the look and feel isn't that way. But it'll have power backup and water inside. Okay? Again, community safe space. It's FEMA rated. All right. Last thing I would share is what I'm going to pass out here. We are looking at the sale of Saginaw property, as people have been anxiously, I mean, we've thrown this out there and everybody's known for a year and a half of what our plans are going to be. The timing of this is this way. We're going to release this out. The board's going to pass a resolution Monday night. We'll advertise it for 3 straight weeks in the newspaper by law. All right. Then we'll receive bids. I believe it's January 20th is the bid date, I think, that we will open sealed bids at that time. Okay. Well, we will know then what we're working with, all right, as far as dollar amount that we're going to use toward that project. Thus, whether or not we can do the extra projects, the additional, the alternative bids that we're going to do. Okay, so we'll open the bids for the property in mid-January. We'll open the bids for the project for Phase 2 late January. The board will approve the work in February, and we will break ground immediately. That is the hope of the plan. Okay. Now, it's no secret because we put it out there in public bid that the property at Sangamon was appraised at $2.1 million to $2.3 million, depending on use. And so the board will set a reserve that'll probably be just a little bit south of that. Yeah, you want to do that? There you go. And you are getting the first taste of, this is the first time we've shared this. This is a draft, close to the final draft of what that marketing will be. Okay, so once we advertise this, once we pass the resolution on Monday, then it'll go on the website. Any interested parties will get this information. In the information, here's the risk of passing out things. When you pass out things, obviously everybody starts reading it. Let me point some things. Remember that, guys. Remember that, because you do the same thing to your teachers, right? Yeah. So there's legal descriptions. I'll just run through it up here. There's legal descriptions of the property that came right from the title. There's descriptions of the site, 3.6 acres down there. There's some, the way there's a site map in there on utilities because they've been upsized in that area. There's improvements into the building itself and what it looks like, contact information, and then you've got plat numbers to be able to go online to look and see where those are. Satellite map, as builds, and then images of the property itself. Okay, now you've got a little bit different file than what I have. You've actually got some things that the village has thrown to us, and we've included a little bit more information than what I'm showing in your packet there. That gives you an idea of our intent, gives you an idea of what we're looking at. It's going to be a leaseback situation. So if we enter an agreement with a buyer, then we will use the building till the fall of 2018. We would be maintaining that building until then in some fashion or shape, however that agreement will look like. But we would use the building until the fall of 2018, and when we move, then closely thereafter, then they would take full ownership. So that's what we're looking at right now. on Sagamon. Now, how did I do on time? Yeah, 8:11. We're right where we need to be. So, questions, comments? Yes?
So is it the intent, and I believe it is, that all of this is going to be done without raising property taxes?
Yes. In fact, what we're looking at is by taking bonding that's going away, your house payment's going away, taking it back to where the house payment stays level. That was part of our strategy. Then bonding capacity, and that bonding, the bonding for the sales tax, those numbers keep gradually climbing because they're just naturally going to do that. And then some health, life, safety dollars. So the project at Sagamon was all health, life, safety. Okay, this was a combination of sales tax, mostly sales tax, and some of that bonding as well. So we've already done all the bonding scenarios back before Christmas to get to where we are today. So that money is sitting there. The proceeds are ready for when we pull the trigger to actually take the loan out. We got 3 years to do that. Okay, so we haven't borrowed all the money for this building yet. Okay, but no, the tax rate stays level in that projection all the way through the whole thing. And when we've gone the last 3 years, where we've had anywhere from $300,000 to $350,000 in sales tax revenue over and atop what's been committed to other things available to us, by 2019, this district will have $700,000 each year at a minimum at their disposal through sales tax in our model to be able to address some of the future needs that we have. So what we're trying to do is set it up to where we keep that level, and then here we go. Now, I will tell you, Mike, to be totally blunt, I hate it when people say, let me be honest with you, because what else would they be? But if I were to be up front, this new funding model from the state of Illinois, our tax levy for the Ed Fund alone is capped at 2.45%. Every other district around us is at a minimum 3%. Up to Urbana, that's 3.99 for that one fund alone. When the state looks at this evidence-based funding model and they lay down 27 different components, from class size to how you transport to all the best practices on top of a district, not just ours but every district, and they say what is appropriate for you to expect from your local EAV, I think what's going to be revealed is we probably haven't been taxing at a rate, and I just showed you where we are. We probably haven't been taxing at a rate for years that the state's going to say you need to capture a little more in the Ed Fund alone. Okay? So my guess is in 5 or 6 years, because I think the governor's going to put tax caps, or he's going to put property freeze in statewide. I think that's going to happen. But then when they come back and say, okay, this is how much you should be capturing locally, because everybody taxes differently, people like Rantoul are going to have to justify why they're taxing so high. Okay? Here, it might be on the other side of that coin. Well, can we figure out a way to do it without raising taxes? Okay? And legitimately, should we be the second lowest in the entire place, the way this place performs? I could argue that no. We should be in the 50th percentile, and that'd still be great. Thank you, guys. You guys have a good rest of the week.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yes?
Is the K and pre-K still expandable?
Yes. Yeah, we've got a model that on the southwest corner, that is where we would add classrooms down there. Yes. Remember that originally the footprint, when we got here, was to take Middletown and pluck it out there, and then take Sagamon and stack it out there along beside it. And when the board got looking at it closely, there weren't a lot of gain efficiencies in administrative cost and staffing and shared, there just weren't. So when we looked at it again, the footprint of turning this into a pre-K through 2 building, it just made sense. From safety, security, programming, all under one roof. I mean, it just made a lot of sense. And then it let us look at that site out there for what it can be used for next. Now, the next round, phase 3, is within 8 or 10 years in that model where the house payment goes away and can we keep it back level. That's the next moment in time, depending on the environment then, because someone will have to decide that, whether that's the moment in time that the community will decide whether or not we're going out with the junior high. And hopefully it'll work out like it did this time, that again we keep that level. Okay? Questions? I can tell you, I've spoken a lot in front of groups. To me, having worked with you, there's a lot of people in this room that were involved with the hiring of the new superintendent, and I think that's important, and that's why there were people specifically asked to be a part of that process, okay? And I appreciate that personally, okay? The relationship that the school has with the Chamber of Commerce, I think, is a good one, and I think that level of communication has been good. I appreciate working with you, and it's been a great 5 years for me. So I want you to hear that personally too. It's been enjoyable. I mean, even at times we disagree, we still respect one another, and that's the way it should be. So I appreciate that.